Have you ever felt like your relationship suddenly changed without any clear reason? I feel the same way. My wife, with whom I've been married for almost 5 years, suddenly doesn't want to be called my wife anymore, but only wants to be referred to as my girlfriend. Things are slowly becoming confusing, and I don't know what to do. Join me as I explore this emotional journey. When Sarah and I started our relationship, everything felt like a beautiful love story. We met through mutual friends at a summer party 6 years ago. I clearly remember the first time I met Sarah. She was not only beautiful, but also very intelligent and funny. We talked all night without feeling bored, and right away, I felt that she was the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. After a short time, we officially started dating. Our relationship was built on trust and mutual respect. Both of us had stable careers, and although we weren't rich, we knew how to build a fulfilling and cozy life together. Sarah was an independent woman, always confident and knowing exactly what she wanted in life. She wasn't the type to care about money or material things, but always valued genuine connection and love in a relationship. We had been dating for 3 years before we decided to get married. Finally, we held a small but meaningful wedding with close friends and family. The wedding was the result of sincere love and careful planning from both sides. Sarah took on most of the wedding planning, from choosing the venue and decorations to picking the special dishes that meant something to us. It was a wonderful day, one we had been waiting for throughout our 3 years of dating. In the early years of our marriage, Sarah and I were very happy. We were not just spouses, but also good friends. Every day, we shared joys and sorrows, built our family together, and faced life's challenges. Sarah was always a strong woman, someone I could trust completely. We didn't just share happy moments, but also faced difficulties together. But everything started to change when we entered the 3rd year of our marriage. The first signs weren't very obvious, but I started noticing small changes in Sarah's behavior. Our conversations started to become less frequent, replaced by strange silences. Sarah no longer shared things with me as she used to, and when I tried to talk, she would often avoid it or give unclear answers. At first, I didn't think much of it. I told myself that everyone goes through busy periods with work and life. However, as this issue dragged on, I started to feel uneasy. It felt like an invisible distance was gradually growing between us, and I didn't know how to erase it. One of the moments that made me really feel like something was wrong was when Sarah started refusing to wear her wedding ring. She said she simply didn't like the feeling of jewelry on her hands. At first, I didn't think much of it, but when I realized that this wasn't a new preference, Sarah had always disliked wearing jewelry, I began to feel confused. Could something be happening that I didn't know about? After these initial signs that I didn't pay much attention to, Sarah's strange behavior became more apparent. Although I tried to convince myself that maybe she was just going through a difficult phase in life, deep down, a sense of unease started to form. It wasn't just worrying, it was an unexplainable confusion. One of the clearest signs was when Sarah began calling me her boyfriend instead of her husband. At first, I thought she was just joking. Sometimes, she would say things like, "Remember, boyfriend," when we were doing housework together, or "Thank you, boyfriend," when I helped her carry things. While I could understand that this change might not be huge, it made me feel uncomfortable and strange. Then, one day, as we were preparing for Valentine's Day, Sarah asked me to buy a girlfriend card instead of a wife card. When I asked her why, she simply answered, "I just don't want to feel like I'm getting older and tied down by the title of wife." Her answer made me even more confused. Why would a wife not want to be called a wife? Could this be a sign of a change in her feelings? Or just an expression of unspoken dissatisfaction? I wasn't sure. The moment that made me truly worry was when Sarah decided to stop wearing her wedding ring. She said she didn't like the feeling of jewelry, but that wasn't the real reason. We had talked a lot about how the wedding ring wasn't just a piece of jewelry, but a symbol of love and commitment. But when Sarah decided not to wear it anymore, I couldn't help but feel that this was a clearer sign. I began paying attention to our conversations. One time, when we were having dinner with a group of friends, someone mentioned an upcoming wedding and asked Sarah how she had planned our wedding. Sarah immediately responded indifferently, "What wedding?" Her words left me stunned. Our friends fell silent, and no one knew how to react. No one laughed as they usually did. Instead, there were looks of surprise and confusion. It didn't stop there. Sarah even began to cry when the conversation continued about our wedding. I felt like the whole world had collapsed. She stepped outside to calm down, and I was left sitting there, unsure of what to do. How could a wife react like that when talking about our special day? When Sarah returned, I knew I couldn't stay silent anymore. I directly asked her, "Is there something wrong with us? Did I do something wrong?" But Sarah shook her head and said everything was fine, that she just felt like things from the past didn't matter anymore. But I couldn't help feeling that something wasn't right. How could I easily overlook such obvious signs? From these behaviors, I couldn't help but wonder what was going on in Sarah's mind. Was she unhappy with our marriage? Or was there something deeper that I couldn't recognize? Was our love being tested? These questions haunted me, and I wasn't sure if I had the ability to solve the problems we were facing. After the strange event that evening, when Sarah walked out after my question about the wedding, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The feeling of worrying and unease wouldn't leave me. I knew I couldn't let things continue like this without getting some clarity. Even though Sarah said everything was fine, I felt that there was something deep inside her that I couldn't understand. Our relationship was being tested in ways I had never imagined. That night, I tossed and turned in bed, trying to think about what could have gone wrong. I started reflecting on everything over the time we had spent together with Sarah, from our dating days, the wedding, and our daily conversations. We had overcome many difficulties in life together, but now it felt like we were standing at a crossroads, and neither of us knew which way to go. I couldn't stop thinking about what had changed in Sarah's heart, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what it was. So, I decided to face Sarah again. I couldn't continue living in this confusion, and I didn't want to keep things ambiguous. One evening, as we sat together after dinner, I gently started the conversation. "Sarah, we need to talk about what's happening. You've changed a lot lately, and I feel like I don't understand you anymore. I want to know the truth. Are you no longer happy in our marriage?" Sarah sat in silence for a long while, as if thinking before responding. I could see she was struggling with her feelings. Finally, she looked me in the eye and said, "John, you haven't done anything wrong. But one, I feel like I'm losing myself. Our wedding, the wedding ring, the anniversaries, they all feel like a burden. I don't know what to do with all the expectations. I feel like I'm living as someone I no longer recognize." Sarah's words completely stunned me. This was the first time she admitted she was unhappy with the life we had built. What I thought was a strong love between us now turned out to be a burden to her. I couldn't understand why she felt that way, especially since we had so many happy memories and a full life together. Sarah continued, "I feel like I'm no longer myself when I became your wife. I don't want to be tied to the label wife. I just want to be free, without the responsibility to live up to a model that society or our family set for me." When I heard this, I started to understand part of Sarah's feelings. Maybe she was feeling suffocated by the roles she had to play. Perhaps the wedding, a major event with many expectations, had become a burden instead of a milestone of happiness in her life. But I couldn't stop feeling confused. As I didn't know how to help her get past these feelings, I asked her, "So, what do you think about us? What can we do to change things?" But Sarah didn't respond immediately. She just sat silently, as if searching for an answer that she wasn't sure about. After a long pause, she gently said, "I don't know. I just need time to think about everything." Her words only made me feel like there was an insurmountable distance between us. Was Sarah looking for a life without the constraints of what we had built together? Or was this just a phase she needed to go through to find herself? This made me even more uncertain, as I didn't know how to help her. At that point, I couldn't do anything except listen and give Sarah space. But I knew I had to be patient, because if I didn't, this relationship would only grow farther apart. The big question remained, could Sarah find herself again, and could we overcome this phase together? Since that conversation, when Sarah admitted to feeling suffocated and wanting more freedom, I couldn't stop thinking about what she had shared. I understood that we were standing at a crossroads in our relationship, and if we didn't find a way to resolve things, we wouldn't be able to move forward. Our relationship had been built on love, trust, and beautiful memories. However, now I felt like everything was gradually being torn apart by emotions that hadn't been addressed. I didn't want to lose Sarah. We had the many years of happiness, and I couldn't accept something small yet so vague breaking that happiness. So, I decided to do whatever it took to help her overcome these unspoken feelings. I began researching ways to help Sarah feel free without having to give up our relationship. One of the first things I did was decide not to force Sarah to make a decision right away. I understood that she needed time to think and reflect on everything. She also needed space to freely rediscover herself without feeling constrained or under pressure. I didn't want to make her feel more suffocated, so I chose to step back, giving her some time alone. In the following days, I tried to change my approach to our relationship. I stopped bringing up past matters like the wedding or family expectations. Instead, I focused on simple moments between us, like dinners, walks, or even casual conversations with no specific purpose. I hoped that these simple things would help Sarah feel more comfortable and not pressured. However, I also noticed that our relationship had changed in ways I hadn't anticipated. Sarah began spending more time for herself. She took yoga classes, which she hadn't shown much interest in before, or went out with friends without needing me to join. I felt a little lonely, but I also knew that this was a sign that Sarah was trying to reconnect with herself. I couldn't force her to go back to the old version of us. Instead, I decided to support her choices, even though sometimes it made me feel isolated. A week after our conversation, I decided to try again, but this time with a gentler approach. I invited Sarah on a short trip, just the two of us. I wanted her to feel that we could still enjoy simple yet meaningful moments together. During the trip, we didn't talk much about marriage or the future, but simply chatted about little things in life, like favorite hobbies, movies, or trips we had dreamed of. I hoped that through these conversations, Sarah would see that we could still be close without holding onto rigid expectations of each other. That trip wasn't a magic solution, but it brought a small change in how we viewed our relationship. Sarah began to open up more and share her true feelings with me. She admitted that, although she felt overwhelmed by the responsibilities of being a wife, she didn't want us to end. She loved me, and she wanted us to find a way to get through this difficult time together. But I also realized that our relationship would never be the same as before. The important thing was that we had to learn how to adapt to the changes, find a new balance where both of us could grow without losing our connection. Each of us needed time and space to become the better versions of ourselves, and I believed that only when we both did that, our relationship could truly thrive. Therefore, I no longer felt too anxious about the changes Sarah was going through. I understood that everyone goes through difficult phases in life, and I was ready to accompany her. Not to fix something, but to rebuild our relationship from a new foundation where love still existed, but without the pressure of societal expectations or rigid roles. That short trip helped us see things more clearly. After returning, although things weren't completely back to normal, I noticed a small but significant change in Sarah. She began to open up more and no longer felt stifled when we talked. Even though things were still unclear, at least we could start again from a firmer foundation, one where we faced difficulties together without pressure or unrealistic expectations. One of the most notable changes I saw was that Sarah began to share more about her feelings. Before, she kept everything to herself, and I struggled to guess what she was thinking or feeling. But now, she began talking about her worries without fear that I would judge her or get upset. She admitted that the desire to escape the responsibilities of being a wife didn't mean she didn't love me. In fact, she still loved me very much, but she felt overwhelmed by the constant need to live up to a certain role. we started discussing what we wanted for the future. Sarah no longer avoided the subject of marriage as she had before. Instead, we talked about the changes we both could make to feel more comfortable in our shared life. Sarah wanted more personal time to rediscover herself, and I understood that it was necessary. But she also realized that if we could share space and time properly, our relationship could still remain strong. One agreement we made was to change how we interacted in our relationship. We decided not to force each other into fixed roles. Sarah would have time to pursue her personal interests and passions, but we wouldn't neglect the moments we spent together. We no longer expected each other to live up to a traditional model of husband and wife, but instead, we focused on maintaining a balance between love and personal freedom. What I realized through all of this is that not all changes are bad. Marriage doesn't always have to stick to an old, rigid model. It needs to change, adapt, and grow with each phase of life. Sarah and I have learned that love doesn't mean binding each other to one form, but accepting the growth and changes in both. We no longer had to cling to old images of each other, but instead, together, we built a relationship that could withstand the challenges of time and change. When we started talking about having children, I could feel a distinct change in Sarah's approach. She no longer felt afraid or pressured. Instead, she began thinking about the future more comfortably. We both agreed that we wouldn't force ourselves to hit specific milestones, but rather, we would let things unfold naturally. Our relationship, though imperfect, had found balance again. We weren't perfect people, and our relationship wasn't a love story without challenges. But we had learned how to face those challenges together and move forward. We understood that each person in a relationship needs space to grow and develop, and when we both managed to do that, love became even stronger. Sarah no longer felt the need to live by the traditional role of a wife. She had found a way to love me without sacrificing her personal freedom. As for me, I had learned that our relationship isn't just about connection, but also about respecting the space and freedom of the person I love. I no longer feared when Sarah wanted to spend time alone. Instead, I supported her in pursuing the things she loved. Our relationship wasn't a replica of anyone else's, but a unique one built on love, respect, and deep understanding. And now, as we continue walking together, I no longer feel anxious about the future. Even with the changes, we walk together and figure out how to adapt to the new challenges that life brings. Our love, though imperfect, will continue to grow stronger through every test we face. After all the efforts to restore our relationship, Sarah and I feel like we've come a long way. Even though the changes in our lives weren't easy, we've learned how to accept and adapt. Through open conversations and mutual understanding, we've not only overcome challenges, but have also made our love stronger. While our relationship can never be the same as it was before, I feel that we've achieved a new balance, one where love and personal freedom can coexist. Our story, imperfect, but I believe it's a story of growth and enduring love. Both of us know that marriage isn't a straight path, but a long journey with twists and turns and continuous challenges. But what matters is that we chose to overcome those difficulties together instead of letting go. Our relationship has gone through a process of change, and I know that we will continue to evolve in the future. We no longer hold unrealistic expectations of each other, but instead have realistic and understanding desires. Love isn't something that can be measured by a perfect formula, but a process of learning, sharing, and supporting each other. Sarah and I now know how to love each other without feeling bound, learning to walk alongside each other without losing ourselves. But one important thing I realized during this process is the necessity of building a shared future. When we began thinking about having children, I realized that this was an important milestone in our relationship. However, unlike other couples, we didn't set a specific timeline, nor did we put pressure on ourselves. Sarah and I both felt that having children was a natural decision, a part of our family's growth, and when the time comes, we will be ready, no longer filled with anxiety or fear about the future. We've learned to look at everything more gently. Building a family, nurturing love, and facing challenges together are no longer things we must achieve according to a fixed script. Instead, we choose to live in the present, focusing on the beautiful things we can create together. We no longer feel any tension or pressure when facing the future. Sarah has found the personal freedom she was looking for, and I no longer feel left behind. Together, we're shaping a future that isn't perfect but full of hope. A future where both of us can feel free and happy in our own lives, without having to sacrifice or lose important values. In the end, I realized that our relationship is a combination of many elements: love, understanding, and respect. What we've gone through helps me understand that no relationship is easy, but only when both partners are determined and willing to change can love last. Worse still,